What's a lie people still believe no matter how often it's debunked? Story 1. If people are presented with irrefutable proof, they change their minds. Every study shows it just makes people double down and dive further into nonsense. Changing a person's mind is a long, slow, gradual process. Story 2. Children die because strangers poison Halloween candy. The only known case of a child dying from tainted Halloween candy was in the 70s and resulted from their own father putting cyanide in an oversized pixie stick to get money from a life insurance policy. But my friend heard about your friend heard from a friend about a kid getting poisoned by Halloween candy, or razor blades in candy, or tax, or fentanyl, or LSD? Oh, I'm sure. Answer. When I say I have to have this argument with my boomer mother every Halloween since my nieces and daughter were really little. First, it was razor blades needles. Now it's people slipping plant substance candy or ecstasy or whatever to kids. I literally had to say to her, "Mom, best believe nobody is just giving away substances, especially not to snot-nosed kids." Story 3. Humans only use 10 of their brain, and we would have magical powers if we could use all of it. The last part is a less common belief, but one that I have heard nonetheless. Answer. OMG. This one drives me up the wall because there are tons of people who believe this, and it intertwines with spiritual work and a bunch of other weird stuff. It can get almost cult-like from what I've seen. It's such a quick Google search and some basic logic to realize that the 10 in this fact is our active consciousness. The rest is our basic motor functions. Like, why would the human body have a giant brain then that relies heavily on our protein consumption and other basic needs to just function? It literally takes up so much energy just to keep us moving and alive. Story 4. That you have to wait 24 hours before reporting somebody missing. Crimes show nonsense. Those are the most critical hours for somebody who's potentially been abducted. Answer. This is a misconception caused by actual law enforcement agencies. It was incredibly common for police to refuse to take reports of missing people until 24 hours, or sometimes several days, had passed up until very recently. The thought process, especially for children, favored the idea that most children were runaways and would return. This didn't really start changing in many places until after the Jacob Wetterling takedown and abduction in 1989, and wasn't widely spread until well into the 90s. Pretty much everyone who's an elder millennial or older would have grown up with this being the case. Story 5. That our brains are only done developing when they're 25. That is not what the study said, and the study ended at 25. Unfortunately, this lie is affecting actual law and autonomy in some cases. Awful. Story 6. That if the highest marginal income tax rate is, say, 75, that means high earners get taxed 75 of their entire earnings. Politicians use this oversimplification to scare people because numbers terrify most people and it's not cool. Answer. Anti-California folks do this with our state tax rates. They say I am taxed 13.3. No. That's for income over $1 million. They'll also be like your car registration is $1,200. No. Our car registration is based on the cost of your car and its age. If you are paying $1,200, you have an $80K car. Boo-hoo. Drive a normal price car and it's under $300 a year. My Toyota is $178. Story 7. People before the modern era thought the world was flat. People knew the world was round even in antiquity. Story 8. That there was a single universal library in Alexandria. Only one burned, but there were multiple libraries. the loss of information was not as significant as most people think. Answer: and remember, folks, that by far most written historical works have been lost to time. The burning of an ancient library is a terrible loss, but it is just a drop in the bucket. Estimates vary between loss of 90 to 99 of all historical written material so far. The amount is mind-boggling. It's like how less than one of all life has fossil records. We just have no idea how much has been lost to the ages, and we have to appreciate what we do have. Story 9. Polygraphs. Been scientifically proven to be little better than random guessing, but people still believe they work. Story 10. That the McDonald's coffee lawsuit is an example of a frivolous lawsuit and why we needed tort reform. Answer: and the award was decided because McDonald's had already seriously injured a significant number of people, but had just settled out of court and never reduced the temp of the coffee. The court was trying to make it extremely punitive so that McDonald's would finally stop keeping the coffee at such high temperatures and potentially hurting people in the future. Story 11. That women get loose after having multiple intimacy partners. That's simply not how human bodies work. Story 12. If you touch a baby animal, then its mother won't raise it anymore because it smells different. Answer: Reddit solidified my belief that this is disinformation. A colleague and I put a baby robin back into its nest in early spring, and it and its siblings are thriving now. They're out of the nest but can't fly very well as their tail feathers haven't grown in. They can fly short distances but are clumsy as hell. They hang out nearby, and Mom and Dad robins. Keep an eye on them. Little dude would have died if we didn't help out. Story 13. The Millennium Bug was fake a hoax, not even a problem. A lot of people worked really fudge hard across the globe to fix the problem, and even then there were still a few deaths related to it. Answer: not only that, but the effort to fix Y2K also highlighted other issues and lead to massive improvements to the resiliency of the U.S. financial system. The World Trade Center housed about 300 mainframes for many major banks, many of which were the single source of truth for financial records until they were made to be fully redundant during the Y2K engineering efforts. When the September 11th attacks occurred, all of those mainframes were destroyed. Without the wake-up call of Y2K, millions of bank accounts might have been completely destroyed or reverted to extremely out-of-date paper. Backups. Story 14. You have to register your hands as a weapon when you're a trained professional fighter, and they'll be charged if they fight someone. You don't even have to register firearms. What makes you think you'd have to register hands? Story 15. The government is competent enough to have carried out insert any conspiracy and keep it a complete and total secret for all time. Answer: I half agree, half don't, because governments have kept the lid on sketchy stuff, or kept it on enough at least, for decades. Tuskegee went on for just short of 40 years before being leaked. MK Ultra went on for 10 years and was disclosed by the Government 2 years later. Operation Northwoods, if you count it. Count Puro went on for 15 years. UK tested bioweapons on its own citizens for 40 years, and it wasn't known for another 20 years afterwards. And of course, there's the likely more that haven't been disclosed yet, survivorship bias and all that. People definitely overestimate the government's ability to cover up stuff, but many also see that overestimation and overcorrect their estimation. Story 16. Take shelter under an overpass during a tornado. There are pictures of it happening recently, and it's very dangerous, unfortunately. Story 17. Vaccines cause autism. Organic produce doesn't have pesticides. They are naturally derived. We only use 10 of our brains. Story 18. Flat Earth. For a belief started by a guy who couldn't accept hot air balloons can't achieve orbit, it's spread a ton. Story 19. Probably the whole alpha male thing. It was since proven to be a flawed study. It was only ever observed in wolves in captivity and never in the wild years. And the scientist behind that study has dedicated his entire life to trying to undo that screw-up. Story 20. The alpha wolf dog thing. The guy who did that study shared that he was incorrect shortly after, and people continue to use dominance to train their dogs, which is mostly just making them fearful. It's sad, and I feel very badly for a lot of dogs and the way people treat them. Story 21. That when women spend enough time together, their cycles sync up. It's simply not true. Everyone's cycles are different, so if you spend enough time with someone, eventually they'll align for a bit. It's like when you've got your indicator blinker on and you're comparing it to another blinker. Just me? They're out of sync until a couple of blinks, when they momentarily align, which is satisfying as fudge, or maybe I just need to get a life. Story 22. That anyone knows what they're doing. Most people in charge are just winging it. Exception: highly technical do or shoot. Story 23. That hitting your kids is beneficial. 50 years of bulletproof peer-reviewed medical and psychological research, and people still won't believe it. Answer: yeah. I-15F was having a discussion a couple of days ago with my grandmother about ADHD. I suspect at least my dad and probably me and my brother are ADHD, and how that isn't a bad thing, how actually it can be connected to being very intelligent. But my grandmother was like, oh, those are just spoiled brats. Back in my day, we would just slap them and they would stop with the nonsense. Just ugh. Story 24. People believe all day long that abortion bans, reducing birth control, and intimacy education will lower abortion rates, rather than looking at the policies of countries who actually have low abortion rates and doing what they do, which is not banning abortion, making birth control easier to access, and by giving comprehensive intimacy education young. Answer: the fun, not really a secret, is these people don't actually care about reducing abortion rates, and that's never been their metric for success. It's always been about punishment and control, and as a bonus, a way to pressure people into providing infants for adoption. I've never heard any forced birther bring up actual, accurate abortion statistics amongst themselves, and I've been amongst them way more than I would prefer. Story 25. In the US, you can't effectively make less money by getting a raise and paying more taxes. That's not how it works. I've heard so many people say that they have made less money after getting a raise. Those people are either lying to try to prove a dumb point, or they don't understand how numbers work. Answer: there are a few common cases where that does actually happen. You can earn enough to lose benefits, which can reduce total income. You can earn enough to be exempt from overtime rules, so earn less overall. You can be moved from a lower hourly rate to a higher salaried rate and get paid less to do more. There's only one instance I'm aware of where it's taxes doing it, where if some of your income is earned and some is from landlording, then you can lose significant tax breaks if you earn too much and end up making much less. But it's not unusual to be paid less after getting a raise. Story 26. The whole smear campaign against the McDonald's coffee lady, as in, people still believe the smear campaign wasn't a smear campaign, not people still believe that there was an anti-McDick's smear campaign. Story 27. Politicians care about their constituents. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a politics issue. Story 28. That most people lie all the time, even when they don't mean to. Most studies report about 75 of people intentionally lie at least 1 to 2 times a day. Story 29. That doctors purposely let you die if you opt in to bring an organ donor. They don't check for that when treating you. If they do find out you are an organ donor, you are likely well dead or have been brain dead for a while. Story 30. Your brain is finished developing at 25. The truth is way more complicated. 25 isn't the age an egg timer goes off and you're fully cooked. Story 31. The whole blood is blue until it comes into contact with oxygen thing. I've had more than one intelligent person argue this, even years after it has become common knowledge that it's false. Story 32. Furries using cat boxes in the schools in left-leaning cities. The governor of Texas was publicly pushing that narrative himself to keep people without a brain voting for him and his buddies so they would put a stop to it. Story 33. That daddy longlegs are the most venomous spider in the world, but their fangs are too short to pierce the skin. It's never been true. But Mythbusters had Adam Savage get bit by multiple daddy longlegs to prove it, and he's yet to die. Story 34. Flat Earth. I cannot fathom how anyone can still think this way, but the number of believers actually seems to be growing. Story 35. That the human attention span is the same as that of a goldfish, about 7 seconds. Neither are true. Goldfish are literally a study species for understanding memory. Story 36. That the government cares about the poor. They will replace you just like my boss replaced Christina after she died and then complain about all your coworkers being not good enough at the same meeting and saying we feel sorry for your loss. They sent her home to die. She complained of chest pain being short of breath and no one gave care, especially not the rich management. No ambulance was called, no nada. Story 37. That the double-slit experiment proves our conscious observation of the particle wave changes its behavior. It's the measurement. The measurement affects the outcome. When you are interacting with the universe on that small of a scale, it's impossible to actually measure or see anything without touching it in some way. Story 38. Chiropractics does nothing to truly heal. Realignment is a myth. The most outcome-successful chiropractors have been found to be more similar to physical therapists. Story 39. Crystal healing, homeopathy, chiropractors, faith healing, etc. Pseudoscience is a cancerous thing. Story 40. That the moon landing was fake, or any conspiracy theory for that matter. The moon landing won specifically because, honest to God, do they honestly think they, out of the thousands of people who worked on that project, that not a single credible individual would have come out and given genuine hard evidence for this portion of history being one huge lie? The belief of any of these conspiracy theories has to have the basis that our or any other government is organized and cooperative enough to keep anything a secret. The only way I could see a conspiracy being able to be done nowadays is to keep the entire country isolated and in the dark from information. Answer: I really want the people who claim the moon landing was fake to actually try to recreate the moon landing video using only the technology back then. Like having two light sources making shadows point different directions, but only objects casting one shadow. Instead of just writing how it's done, but actually doing it, just to see how impossible it would have been. Story 41. Vaccines cause autism. As a mom of an autistic child, that vile idiot who, with no actually medical backing, tied vaccines to autism enrages me. However, what enrages me even more is parents that refuse to vaccinate because they're scared their kids will get autism. So, Karen, you'd rather risk your child dying of a previously eradicated disease, all while relying on the herd immunity of those that did vaccinate, instead of having a child with autism? You think passing is better than autism? Way to tell an entire community that they'd be better off dead. Fudge all anti-vaxxers who think this way. Story 42. Vaccines Cause Autism was basically Andrew Wakefield's quackery and was retracted. The damage was done, and pointing out Wakefield's sanctions or the retraction is just further support of the conspiracy. Story 43. That you'll drown if you don't wait 30 minutes after eating to go swimming. Semi-related and less common in the English-speaking world, that leaving a fan on while you sleep will eliminate you. Story 44. Blood in veins is blue. I've had grown adults argue this with me. Oh, it's only red during venipuncture because it comes in contact with air. No, Karen. Those collection tubes are a vacuum. Deoxygenated blood is just darker red. Story 45. That the MMR vaccine causes autism. The twat that popularized this had his medical license revoked, and his paper was withdrawn because he's a fraud. But parents will still listen to that bullshit over what doctors say and what the evidence says. Story 46. 1. Republican administrations are good for the economy. 2. America needs to be run like a business. 3. Trickle-down economics is real and will help poor people improve their lives. Story 47. Some smooth brains still somehow think JFK's driver shot him in broad daylight in front of countless witnesses and then drove his victim to the hospital, never being charged with anything. All because of a reflection on a passenger's head vaguely looking like a gun for a couple of frames in the Zapruder film. Or at least it does to a legally blind person. Story 48. Baby Jesus, with skin as white as the driven snow, genuinely cares about who you allow to diddle your doodle. Story 49. You need to wait 30 minutes after eating before swimming. Bro, I'm trying to float, not do the 100-meter freestyle. Story 50. That margarine is one molecule away from being plastic. It's so wrong I can't even describe how wrong it is, but a shocking number of people in my life, my dad's crunchy, anti-vax, anti-sunscreen family, believe it. And I've come across more than one person on social media who also believe it. Story 51. Easy one, but Holocaust denial is a big one, and growing at an alarming rate nowadays in online spaces. IDK about Reddit, but TikTok and Instagram are riddled with it. Every piece of proof you present them, they either 1. Say it's false. 2. Give false evidence in response and not even address it. 3. Say it's a Jewish lie and not reliable. 4. A combination of all of them. I see it in a lot of traditional Catholic or Orthodox Christian circles, and as a born Jew who literally converted to Catholicism, it's heartbreaking. Story 52. People in the Middle Ages were considered old by the age of 30. No, bro. I know you want to believe in the myth of progress and that modern society is oh so advanced, but the median life expectancy was 30 to 40 due to high child mortality. If you made it out of your childhood, however, you'd be looking forward to a pretty standard life expectancy. Not all that different from today. Sure, life could be tough in the medieval, but it's not like folks aren't dying early from diabetes, cancer, overwork, homelessness, and violence in our modern age as well. Story 53. Jesus Christ was a white-skinned dude whose mom had him without a male partner, and apparently he disliked gay people for some reason. Story 54. A lot of people still believe that movie ratings are laws in the US, and you have to be over 17 to legally watch an R-rated movie. In no state is it illegal to watch an R-rated movie if you are under 17. All this is a product recommendation and a guideline for the customer. Story 55. Vaccination causes autism. Even the first guy who said it admitted he lied, but people still believe it. Story 56. The idea that if you ask an undercover cop if they're a cop, they are legally required to disclose that information. Story 57. That God appeared to someone and told them to have followers and to get those followers to give them money. Story 58. It is dangerous to say this on Reddit, but here goes. Corporations don't pay taxes. Since most people pay the majority of their taxes as income taxes, they don't understand that businesses pay different taxes, which the rage baiters never bother to mention. You always hear this company made $25 billion last year, but paid no income taxes. Revenue is not income. Profit is income. Businesses just spend, distribute those profits by 12 and 31, and then someone else pays the taxes on that income. All the money is eventually taxed. There is no escape. Story 59. That a woman burned her tongue on coffee while she was driving and got $1 million from McDonald's from it. 1. She wasn't driving, her nephew was, but the car was parked. 2. She didn't burn her tongue, she got second and third degree burns on her groin and crotch, with skin falling off in sheets. 3. She got burned because the coffee was lava hot, nowhere near drinking temperature. 4. McDonald's did that to save money. If you keep the pot hotter, you clean it less. 5. She won the case, got awarded an amount by a jury, and the judge knocked it down by over half immediately. 6. She wound up settling with McDonald's for a much smaller amount than the judge gave her, likely $250,000. Part of the original amount was punitive damages to get McDonald's to stop doing what hurt the woman. The judge dropped that. 8. McDonald's did nothing about the lava-hot coffee. They kept doing exactly what hurt her. They learned nothing. Glad I could clear that one up. All those frivolous lawsuits. Think of the poor multinational corporations. Story 60. People like say, facts don't care about your emotions, but they have it backwards. Emotions don't care about your facts. Humans are emotional creatures more than they are logical. Story 61. The claim that vaccines can cause autism. I wish I believed in hell, because if it exists, there should be a special hot seat there for Andrew Wakefield. Story 62. American food is unsafe. We're like third in food safety behind Denmark and Canada. Do we have a lot of processed food? Sure. So do all the European countries that shoot on our stuff? No, our sandwich bread is not cake. And if that's what your cake is like, your country fudge sucks. Story 63. Vaccines cause autism. That was a rumor made up by a doctor who was trying to develop his own and wanted to scare people away from his competitors' products. Story 64. Vaccines cause autism. That was mentioned by a Playboy playmate more than 30 years ago, and people still believe her, despite the many studies that have since disproved her cockamamie theory. Story 65. Flat Earth. It's useless to show a flat earther any kind of evidence. They will just say it's AI or just a NASA conspiracy. They never doubt. They are just smarter than everybody else. Story 66. Water moccasins will chase you. And along with that, no. Your friend's cousin did not water ski into a mating ball of water moccasins and die. Story 67. Flat Earth. Been over 2,000 years and we still have people believing this nonsense. Also, if it was true, then what is there a gain about lying that the earth is round? Who profits? Story 68. There was a scare about 2 decades ago, maybe longer, that frozen turkeys had been injected with rat poison. Some group had claimed that they had done it to turkeys in supermarkets all over town. This caused all the turkeys to be removed from sale, and so there was a shortage that year. Either for Christmas or Thanksgiving, I don't remember. The health department issued a statement about a week later saying that they tried many methods and had determined that it was impossible to inject this poison into frozen turkeys as the group claimed. No contaminated turkeys were found, and there was a huge reward offered for the hoax culprits. Story 69. The Earth is flat. The moon landing was fake. I'm shocked at the number of people I have met who still believe these. Story 70. The lie is that we evolved specifically for this purpose. Story 71. I don't work overtime because taxes take all of it anyway. In the US, you never make less money by earning more income, excluding the benefits cliff, etc. Story 72. That when tariffs are put on imported goods, the country exporting pays the tariffs. China not paying anything despite the billions claimed by Trump. This may just be Trump who thinks this LOL. Story 73. That vaccines pose any risk to anyone. It just doesn't matter that their entire theory hinges on one study that was incredibly faulty and has been debunked so many times. People just want to believe that doctors are bad, so vaccines are bad, and there's no convincing them otherwise. Story 74. Milk in your eyes for tear gas and pissing on jellyfish stings. Both are wrong, and you are only risking infection by doing this. Also, CPR is not like kissing unless you're doing one of these things very wrong.